This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so it's not really theoretical, but I will explain a bit in the lab, and if we have time, I will already show a few stuff, and then by the end of the session, I will ask the people if they want to do some lab together. It's fine for me. I will create a user per subscriber that wants to do a lab. Some of them will be in RTP, some of them maybe in India, if it's India, so it's local. Some of them maybe if we have the access to the network, we can change this machine inside the UCS so that we can eventually even look at 64-bit stuff. So just to let you know, this machine, like here, for example, I think I have the console somewhere. It's here. So this machine is running on the UCS in RTP. It's a 64-bit, so that one is able to run IOL image. An IOL image is like a iOS, but it's running on Linux. So I'll show, for example, I don't know if there is one here yet. Obviously, right now, this machine, you can see here, is running that network, so maybe we need to change it so that we can access directly from the disk. But eventually, if I go public, it will, I think it's release. I've configured actually this machine over here, so you have a few versions. But this machine is nice because it can actually run a 64-bit and a 32-bit. So I've done the Linux so that it actually can do both. So it's interesting because now with the latest IOL, you only have 64-bit. It was useful up to 15 because their 32-bit was still working, but later on they just compiled 64-bit stuff with iOS XE, and so you need both. So obviously you can see here for the training I have some version that we can use, so it doesn't really matter. Some people are still running those versions eventually. So this is really a Linux-based Linux image that can run iOS, and you kind of start it as a process. So it will be a process in the Linux. Everybody can use his own lab, and so you can create those labs on this machine. If the lab is finished, you just close it, and eventually you can create some other later on. So you can see here, for example, in this machine for the moment, I've created some user. I don't know if it's already something in there, but you have my user, you have some ISG simulation, some IWAC maybe. I'm not sure that it's already configured, but you have some possible information here of possible lab already ready. So per user, we will create a lab, and there is some full of script actually this machine that I built. So you can do a lot of stuff. Once I even did with my mobile here at home, redirection within those IOL image without having anything to add in the routing of Cisco. Just by doing some script here with IP tables and so on, it was possible to actually redirect my phone, which is an Android Samsung, through this lab and actually reproduce the customer trouble with this also. And I didn't need, you know, to install loads of Wi-Fi and all that stuff to try to reproduce customer trouble. Everything was there. And most of ISG stuff is control plane. So I would say 90% of the case you can probably reproduce in IOL. And DD will even be happy because it can actually work on your lab. And sometimes I even duplicate labs for these. So like here, for example, it was the case. I did a Dev3 Pro user, so I moved my lab to this one or copied the lab to this one so that it didn't damage mine, and it can do whatever you want on that one. So that's one possibility here with this RTP. We have also some VM running in Calo. Obviously, I need to maintain them because after a few means they want to delete it. But normally I get an email, and where I have one in BGL, so lab, so Bangalore. So in there I can actually assign some users if you want, and if you're located in Bangalore. I also have the same in RTP, so even though I don't have access right now on the UCS, we can start. It's actually very easy, and I will show you in a few minutes how to actually configure a lab. So it's good for the recording, I guess, just to review a simple way to do a lab. For this, I will start using this one, and I think I have this in my host, if they didn't change the IP address. Let's do cutoff. The one in Bangalore is a DNS name, so you can even call the DNS. So if I do host 2-BGL, this one is in the DNS, so you can access it directly. The one of RTP is not in the DNS, so you need to do it yourself, or maybe they had it, I don't know. So let me first, what I do in my Mac, since I don't always remember the IP address, I just put them into some host file. Since Linux you can do this, so I have Autolab San Jose, this one is gone, but I think this is actually the one for RTP. So let's see if I do host. I don't know if it exists. Well, this one exists, so let's try to SSH to this one. So now I will try to access this Autolab RTP. And since what it's probably, okay, so what I usually do on this machine, I create the username that you have with Mac. So you don't need to actually do the -L or put your username on the front, it takes it automatically. This is typical when somebody changed the key, so you actually need to update your file, and the easiest way is to delete the line. So you go and do an update of that file. If you decide that you don't care, you can even delete the entire file, it doesn't matter. You will recreate all the key at the time you actually go to a server. So I can do pico of that file, and it's line 36. So somewhere on the line 36 I should see, and obviously now it's a bit difficult to find out, and you potentially need to remember the key. So another way to find out, to delete only the line instead of counting, is to use some other tool like Sublime, and I have this in my tool. So here the line 36, somewhere a key I need to delete, and you can see it's actually here. So up, I remove it, and actually it's still kind of there the second time. You can also use Control key, I think, to remove it. Okay. I save. You can also use Command Save. So hopefully now I can access it. Obviously, since there's no key in the host, he actually asks me to, if I want to create it. Must be another one. No, this service. It's for RTP XR, because they have another one. So let me check what IP address I have here on this box. RTP. So if you look into this tool of Scala, you can actually go to that server. Now I need to look at console stuff access. VM console. Okay. Suppose it will actually. Not very successful. Maybe I didn't install that plugin in the. I don't know what it's doing right now. So if you don't know where it is, you go infrastructure, virtual machine, and then you can actually search from here. Where am I? Ah, sorry, wrong device. RTP is still here. So if this one works. Well, it goes and crash all the time. This time I'm in RTP. Maybe I think I did configure on Chrome. Let's try. So those are the Calo servers actually. This one. So Autolab RTP is here, I think. Then let's see if I can access this one. I changed the PC, so it might be that I have a trouble for this. Oh, okay. Always hello. I have to restart it. Hmm. Yes, a bit more stuff. Now I have to wait, I guess. The problem is I don't know the IP address right now. So, going here. So that's the machine that is actually running in this Calo and is dealing with our setup. So let's see if I can access this, apparently. And let's see what IP address maybe this one. Well, let's see, ifconfig. It's still the same. Okay. I'll move this one a bit here so that it's a bit more clean. This one I don't need. Oh, let's open terminal now. And my machine of RTP. It's a bit of a trouble to find out, but I think it's good to actually show people how they can access the information. So let's see if I have this address actually in my etc host. Maybe I missed it. So we have 120.249. No, it's not in there. So SSH 172.18.120.249 should be bringing me to this machine, hopefully. Doesn't seem to work well either, so maybe I'll go to COP2 BGL. This one is hanging, apparently there's some problem with communication. I'll have to check this one also. So anyway, same for BGL. This one is working fine. Group 2. hopefully. And that's normally what you would get if you actually access to this machine. And that's whether it's in the UCS, it will be configured the same way. Move this one. Okay, so here, like I said, this machine is full of script, and you see here, by default, it will show you the help lab when you access. So now, I will see if I have some users. I have this analysis I2, but I don't know what's in there. So let me just remove it maybe. So there are a few stuff, so I will actually delete everything. And that may be my labs. I don't know what's in there. Okay, so it says G training. So I can actually delete everything. So this user has possibility to do this, so I will delete all that is in this home and an SSIE. So I can use this one like you when we go through the different map. Oh, I delete everything under that directory. Why? Oh, we have another trouble with this machine. I will have to reload. That's another problem with Calo. Sometimes they have a problem in their device and the file is in read-only. I think if I do this, probably wouldn't. I say another way to find out the problem in Calo, you do ls and you type a letter that you would normally complete in Linux, and you see it's creating this stuff that you cannot actually get the list, but it's giving us some strange message in Linux. So again, another trouble in Calo here. So I probably just need to reboot this machine to make it working. But I will not do it now. What I will do, I will go back to this window when I have no access. And actually, I might even do a bit more because I have some same. This machine, you can actually run it also, if you want, on your Mac. So here in the VMware, I also have a possibility. So you can actually recreate ISG on the plane even without having any IP connectivity. So here there is the same machine as the one in RTP UCS that is actually running here on my Mac. Or I can use this one also to demonstrate a bit of stuff. I'll just move everything away. At least this one I control. So VMware, I can normally access this machine, tune the VMware a bit here, so you always get the same IP address. Should be okay, unless you actually do the VPN stuff. Then you cannot access the machine because VPN of Cisco is blocking all the interfaces. But if you don't have that trouble, so I'm on the CVO here, it should be working fine. Again, I have a lot of users here, so let's see what I have as a users. This machine, and you see also that with this machine a lot of stuff other than that. I even have I tried this mobile also from Google to create so you can actually simulate on your Mac a mobile Android to test. So you have a lot of possibility also. So you see here what I usually do, I create a user per lab. And since I'm dealing with different stuff like SG, ones, PLS keys, routing, VPDN, X25. Sometimes I keep them, especially it's nice because you don't use those technology a lot of times, and ESG is definitely one of those. It's sometimes difficult to remember, but if you have that lab, you just start it and you remember everything, or at least you can find out some show command or whatever. It's a lot more easy to communicate with the customer. Yeah, and especially also as some state on a session that you don't remember. If you have this lab, it's really easy. So for example, here I could create a new user and then we will start and I will show you that you can actually have your own radius on each user. I don't know what's under the VPDN here. We'll see what's configured, otherwise I will use that one. So I have some radius IOL, so I will create a new user. So this main user that I have here is just there to create stuff at that user, and I will create, for example, those training. So this is my own machine, but I create this. I don't know if you'll accept a single password. You actually do. Create this user. And then he adding me in the group Cisco. It's again, that's tuned because in the group Cisco, I can do a lot of stuff without any need to have root access. So I prevent a user to really bring the machine down if they're not really familiar with Linux, but still they can do a lot of on their own user. So now that I have this user, I can actually connect to it. Hopefully it still works. So for this I have SSH Cisco. This time I need to, sorry, not Cisco, training. At Ubuntu-VM64. So this is my machine locally in VMware. Hopefully you can get to it, otherwise I just need to verify the IP address because sometimes when I do test I don't use this of the DHCP and it goes a bit wrong. But anyway, let's do the ifconfig. And I see VMware is using this one. So let's try here. And do SSH to that one. Password is the one I just configured, so creating that user. And so this is the type of user you will get. Here, the help lab is not automatically assigned. I still need to do it in this machine, but I think it exists. So if I type app lab, you can still see all the possible lab that I'm using. So the first stuff, if you're doing ISG, you're probably gonna need a radius at some point. And since this machine is using multiple engineers, each engineer would like to have his own lab. And if a customer has a service called Internet for his case, it's very likely that my colleague will have a customer with a service called Internet also, but actually doing something else. So if I have only one radius occurrence, I will screw the lab of everybody all the time. So what it is, this machine is able to create a lab per user, but obviously you're using different port. So if I do a radius, SCTL, this is the new version because it's the 64-bit, so I change the script. If you just do this, it will actually do everything. And even though you saw this user was newly created, by doing radius start TCL, he has find out which user ID you have. He has find out there were no radius created already. He created the radius and he created some stuff for the accounting. Why is it? Because accounting would lock a file per transaction you actually do. Maybe if you have a 2,000 users actually on a ISG in the lab, you will actually create a lot of entries. Because this machine, if you access it from the lab, you can use the exact same config for radius. So Radius here is able to work with this internal lab, but it's also able to work with the machine in the lab. So here you see you actually find out my user, and the script is calculating based on the user ID the different ports. So this time I'm going to use this 2645, but probably somebody else is actually starting it. It's going to be another port. It's also giving you an help on how to configure iOS, because you actually have it here. And if you one day need to go for BNG on the 9K, you even have the config here. If I do now ls, you will see that Radius directory has been created with a Radius occurrence for me only. And if I go to this server, I know all the script has created this stuff here for you, and it's now managed only by you. And if I look in the users file, which is there, because it's a new version of Free Radius, I had to tune some stuff to be similar to the previous version, so it doesn't affect the engineers too much. So if I go less users, you will see that by default I get some entries. So obviously I can change this file later on. If I less clients, these are eventually the NASs or routers that would be able. You see that I have this, but probably I need to add again some of them in this one. And actually, I probably still need to change the original file, but it's good that it's there. We'll test it. So Radius is installed for my lab. And obviously, I will need to tune a bit some of the stuff for my lab, but it's already there. If I now go to, if I want to create a lab, and I say, I'm pretty sure I can actually configure or try to recreate this stuff locally, or I just want to actually learn, you know, and see how it actually works. So I can do this here also. Without asking Carlo to create a lab, I can here on my laptop, if I disconnect everything, still do my SG stuff because it's a virtual machine. So here I will create a directory. So in Linux, to create a directory, mkdir, and I will first create IOL because I know all the IOL labs is there. So cd IOL. You can also, if you want, do -p and put the full path, but it's not really maybe what I needed. So see mkdir training. So I know that everything I'm going to do for training will be under the directory. And now I can create a lab that is only specific to training. If I don't remember, I can do help lab. It's part of the script I wrote before. And here you see config lab is there. My lab is just to display what is already known for my lab. If you want to stop a lab, if you want to start a lab, you use this command. Those are specific script to map. If you actually look at IP tables, or if you want to map traffic externally, you have a simulation of the server that people have from BroadHop at the location. A very simple simulation, but you actually do the job. It's 20 lines, and you actually can reproduce whatever QPS or CPS was doing. And again, per user here in this machine. So your colleague could do his own redirection with that simulation, while you have another one. So it's all per user tuned in this machine. You have some way to create a COA for BNG. You have the same for iOS XE here with COA in TCL. Again, per user, since your config will be a specific port. You can do a simulation of Ethernet over GRE if you ever do a IWAC with Ethernet over GRE. Most of the IWAC in US don't even use Ethernet for, but you could simulate it here. You can create a bridge between this virtual machine and something else. This caused some trouble in Calo. I did it once because they get alarms when they see the same MAC going via different VLAN. And then they get alarmed, so it might complain. So the purpose of that create bridge is that on one of these interfaces of this virtual machine, you could potentially connect an EXIA. And suppose you have in the UCS, you can even have more easily because you can create the switches yourself. But here you could ask the guy to plug something to another server, even a 7200 would do a PVPoE or whatever, or just Ethernet traffic. Then I can bridge that interface back into an iOS XE in the same lab, but using this virtual machine, which means I can actually create Ethernet over GRE case. We reproduce a few cases like this, really because you can tune a lot of stuff in this machine. We reproduce in Brussels some case specific for Ethernet over GRE that if you really wanted to do it, you had to configure like maybe 10,000 modem with the configuration of, because if you look at the BU, they will say for Ethernet over GRE, the only way is actually to configure a cable with a specific version of image on the modem, so where you can do Ethernet over GRE. But this one, you can actually do this with the 7200, create tons of VLANs, and actually send them to an IS with that bridge and this tunnel functionality, and together with some of the script for simulation of Ethernet over GRE. So we can do a lot of stuff with this virtual machine. Again, same functionality in UCS, which is even better because you control really the layer 1 in the case of the UCS. So if I want to create that lab, easy, I just do config lab. I don't remember what I have to put as parameter. It's not really a problem. The script will tell you. So config lab, what you need to do is decide number of router, what tunnels. What is a tunnel? Is actually a connection from that virtual router that will be running under a username to the Linux here. So interesting, because then I can simulate this QPS here, and from that virtual image IOL that is running inside this user, I can do redirection, because simulate QPS is actually dealing with that redirection. So it's really cool because, again, I can test the redirection even if I'm on the bus somewhere. So here, config lab. So I will do an example, and we will start very easy. For example, I want to use a router. Maybe take this. Where is it? Oh, here. I will do small topology. Drawing, that's the one I wanted. So suppose I use 3 routers, because I know I'm going to do IZ after, so I'll use 3 routers. One will be my CPE. One will be the IZ. And one eventually will be some kind of service, so I would simulate the internet over here. So what I really need to do is to connect. And we will do again this, like I said, once we have all the username. I need to connect here. Will I use one interface? I know with PPPoE I can use .1Q even in this IOL. I can actually do it. So I could use one interface for PPPoE, one interface for DHCP, and eventually, if one day I want to test this functionality that I was saying, maybe I even want an interface back to the Linux here, so I can enter with this traffic coming from my mobile, doing the netting here, crossing here, getting the IZ functionality, going to the service, and coming back the same way. So when I tested it, this one here, IZ, was seeing the IP address of Cisco internal network, but you didn't need to route anything there because the Linux here is dealing with the IP table stuff and is doing some tricky stuff to actually handle the traffic. So here I can actually test all of this stuff, but we will keep it simple. We will do only this, and this one will not do. Obviously, I need to be able to connect radio, so I need a tunnel here. So this one will the one be to the Linux again. Obviously, everybody is using the same Linux because it's the same machine. Maybe you need to make sure this network is not seen anywhere else, but actually the script is doing it already. So unless you actually treat Linux, you shouldn't be having any trouble with the network from somebody else. So this is what I'm going to do. So Ethernet, 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 maybe 3 times, why not? And then actually I already have by default 0 from 0 to 03. So I just need to map them. So that's what I'm going to do now with that small script of config lab. I'll try to keep with my window. I don't remember. Is it here? I think it's gone. Okay, let's go back. Oh no, sorry. It's not this one. It's the local one. So, training. Where did I put it? Here. Oh, okay. It was here, sorry. So, here I will create this, but I need to find back now the on which window I have this drawing. So I was one too far. Here I will move this guy to the correct window. I think this one. Okay. I'll remove this and let's move it back. My stuff here. Oh, still the wrong one. Okay, it's going to be a bit more easy to find out what we actually configure. So here I have those 3 routers to do. CFG lab, already check. Too many routers, 3. What do I need to tunnels? I only will use this for radius here, this upper one, so I say 1. And then the type, I can use Ethernet, I can use serial, I can use both Ethernet and serial. If I have still an access case with ISDN coming from an outsourcer, I can still help by creating an ISDN lab here. But this one is specific, so you cannot configure a number of interfaces and so on, because it's tuned for ISDN. So here I will say both, sorry, Ethernet, because I actually don't want to mess up with serial stuff. So by default, the script will actually calculate, and you will see that your user ID is some, so you get some router IDs. Another user will get other type of router's ID. Number of Ethernet between 90, suppose this is 90, and then I'm going to connect to 91, so I want 3. From 91 number of Ethernet connection, I see 1 going here to the service, but actually also this one is an Ethernet. The tunnel is considered as Ethernet. Obviously, I still need to connect the 3 others, so in total I have 5. And then the last one, that will be my service router, where I will eventually put some public IP address to test or whatever. It's 92. This one has only 1 connection, so I just put 1. So we just say current list on router 90 have 3 Ethernet, and on 91, 5, and so on. For tunnel, I see that here I have an additional number, I don't remember all all this stuff I actually wrote, but it's not very difficult. You can actually see here what you configure. Then if I'm okay, I can say yes. Then I need to plug those interfaces. So I see 3 here between 90 and 91. So I will take all the 3 here per interface. So 0 is the front one. So 0, comma, and I select 1 on the router 91, which has number 3 for the moment. So I'm connecting the first line, Ethernet 0, to Ethernet 0 on 91. So you see here is actually saying the interface that it's going to use. So that one is done, and when it's done, you actually recreate a new list, the script with the leftover. Over here, again, I can connect 01 to 01, which is a bit more easy to follow after, so comma, and 91 is 01 also, so 2. I have again 90 to 91, but now it's becoming more easy, just following 01, so connect 002 to 02. So I've connected this one here, 00 to 00, 01 to 01, 02 to 02. I still need to connect to those 2 interfaces here, and you will do it for me. So eventually I could connect this 03 of 91 to the tunnel, or I can connect 10, it doesn't matter. So if I take, for this case, 10, connect to my tunnel, which is here. So this is connecting to the Ubuntu. Okay, then the rest is easy. I just need to do it like this. You can select an image. If the image is in public, you can just select it per router. If you have an iOS XE, or you see here, there is some internal use image. I could use already this one. You can also download from the StreetBrew or whatever Linux server you're using from Texan. They are also in there. So for the moment, I will eventually use obviously something with S because it's ISG. For the first one, I don't really need, so I could use even this one, the M. So let's see, 6 for the first one, because that's my CPE router. 91 will be my SG, so definitely I need to use something with S. For example, I could use this one, or if there's another one like this one, it's also S, so it should be okay. You see here the multiple version actually. I can even have a page and image to create some stuff. So here it's an image compile once. I don't remember to fix what, but it's also still there. So 5, I would say, for example. Let's take 5 for IG, and eventually for the last one, I could even take the page. Why not? 13. If I want to send some traffic, I can actually do it with the page directly. Or if I want to sniff, why not? If I do ls now, you can see that during this config, he actually creates everything. He creates the connection to the Linux script. He creates, or to disable it, he creates a file here, WSLab, where everything is in there. And the netmap is a file that will contain all the connection. You also here have a base config all. It's actually normally a directory, a file where you can actually apply directly into your router, and you will set up like this domain stuff and so on. So now if I do start lab, because that's actually what I want to terminate with, you see that the scripts in the start lab will go over all your users' information. So if you have created 20,000 lab, obviously it takes space in config, but they don't really run because you can only run one lab at a time in your user. But you can search from them. So you can actually do this script and you will find everything that is with WSLab. You will actually look at it into your user directory and tell you, okay, this is the lab I found. And in case here I have a training directory, and I know in the training is for ISG, so I will start this, but I could have like 10 other entries. If there is already one lab running, it will actually tell you something is wrong and it needs to stop. You see here is actually starting the lab, which means he's starting all the routers that are actually configured, and he also connect here the Linux to one of the router. It's not very clear when you actually look at this, but MyLab is what should be a bit more clear. And at MyLab, there's a script that actually also run on this machine. It can tell you the current version that you're running, what kind of router you can actually use as a number. So for the moment, we actually only use the 3 first, and for also for the performance on the machine, and never really exceeded it. You can see that the file process here, there is the list here is because you have actually created a tunnel to the Linux. And the scripts also analyze this by looking at the Linux tunnel you have. And you see that your IP address here locally for your user will be 9.5. That's been configured by the script. And it needs to be connected to Ethernet 1.0 or router 91. So that's the only place where you can actually get a connection from Linux. And again, by analyzing the script has done this. You have 3 processes per router running in the machine, and obviously they are listed here for you. It might be that all the users are actually running. You're not going to be bothered by them. To access each router, you will get a port on TCP, and eventually, if you want to go, if you have a Mac or Linux, you can NCP that script, and that script will automatically, when you run it from here, when you run this command on your Mac, will automatically open all the windows. You can also see that signs are actually at the beginning. Start the radius. I have already the process of radius running. This is all seen just by doing one command, or your lab is actually connected for the moment. If you would have bridging information or something else, or you would actually get into a test with your Android, you will see the entries over here and the bridge information over here. But for the moment, there is none of them running. So, like I said, if you have a Mac, and that's what I'm going to do now, and actually terminate with it today, new. So this is a local interface on the Mac. Maybe I will have a trouble because it's a local machine, but from the machine on RTP shouldn't be a trouble. So here, just because of the IP address, I might need to change fconfig. So normally I think I'm going to use this one, but I don't think this guy will actually resolve that IP address now. So the only thing I will do, I have this script normally, like I said, I change the PC, so it might be that it's not there. But I can use this IP address because this is the IP address of this machine. And eventually that would be the version running in the USCS or the COP2 BGL in Bangalore, for example. And then I would take that line that he was showing me with all the ports. With this eventually opening windows automatically to these routers. So you see this machine running on the back is actually now you can remove that window because you don't really need it anymore. And here are your routers. One router, the 91, we know is connecting to the Linux. So no. One is hanging there. Okay, it's a page and it took a bit more time. So here I have configured this stuff. Remember, this connectivity is already done between the routers. So if I look at enabling this router, remember I was telling you about the base config. So here it's really easy because actually if you see the Unix, it doesn't show, but you can actually do dear Unix. It would be probably a bit better. You see what you see here is actually what is in the Linux, which is really cool because you can actually, if I look at here, CD training, I have these files, and you can see this file here in the Linux is actually what you see in this machine here. And the base config all is actually some config that you can apply. So if you copy Unix base to running, you will actually unshut all the interfaces, move some automatic AA config, and so on. So even if you enable AA and you forgot the login, you cannot access the route anymore, but with this one, it's already configured. So the only thing I need to configure here is my host name. Easy. And then if I, sorry, maybe CPE. So this will simulate my CPE. If I do a show run, I can see that he already configured the AAA. He configure some IP domain lookups here. My domain is il.com, and so on. And all the interfaces are actually unshut already, which means that if I do the same here, command I was using on this router before, you will see it's actually doing exactly the same. I configure my host name, and this is ISG actually. I can obviously save the config already on both sides because it's already interesting. Show CDP neighbor. I can already see the remote route. Obviously, he didn't, at the time he connected, he was still named TB, but in a few minutes it will be ISG. So we'll see the ISG. All the connection I did are actually already there, and it's active because CDP is exchanged. Probably here he start doing changing the name because I see already complaint about off duplex. It's a problem in IOL when you run some 15 version, they are not exactly the same. You have some bugs. So once the CDP has been verified, you can actually just disable this CDP because it's always going to bother you anyway. But we can verify the connectivity with this show CDP neighbor. And we can see IG is correctly learned on those interfaces. You probably need to clear the cache of CDP just to make sure. Another one, obviously, just before terminating, is that interface Ethernet 01 on this one, because this one will actually connect to the Linux. Ethernet, sorry, 1/0. If I go back to this one and I type MyLab, what he was saying about my tunnel, it was my local interface is tunnel training 0. And actually, if I do ifconfig, I will see that interface in Linux. And it is connected to router 10, so it's good. And it's always a /30. So the 6 is actually on my side. IP address .6 255.255.255.252. That's the IP address. I do no shot. I think it was already done with this passing of command. And then cross the finger so that you can ping Linux. Ping .5 because that's the Linux here. And I can ping. So actually now if I would enable telnet on this route, I can actually telnet from this Linux back directly into the iOS. Now also, if I would enable radius, I will be able to send a radius into that Linux on those ports, and I will only touch my user. Even if somebody else is doing exactly the same than me on that machine, I can actually still run without causing any trouble to the other guy. So that's how this virtual machine will work. If you have some question, let me know next time, because I think it's important to actually get some clear state when we'll start with the lab. What we'll do next time is configuring basic PVPoE session, just to get a bit some hands-on on the lab, and then little by little we'll build the ISG config. And at some point with this one, you can even configure the LMA stuff. So GGSN is not supported as a version, but you can actually do it here with like an LTE. So that we can actually do IWAC only in IOL. So you can keep the config for the GGSN part. You actually need the SR5K, which is a bit more complicated to keep, especially the SR5K. If you don't use it for 6 months, you lose all the license. So you need to reinstall all the license in the SR5K. So it's always a trouble. But that's why it's interesting to do the IWAC on the IOL also. So next time we'll start configuring this. What I would require from the people is to give me how many users you want in Bangalore. And try to do it tomorrow, so I can configure them before we have the training next week. And how many users you will require in the one of RTP, and the username of Cisco, please, so that I can just copy and create that user into the Linux, so you don't have to do a specific SSH with a specific username. And then after that, like I said, you can decide to work with 3, you know, if you know you're not going to be available all the time. But don't forget, it's going to be your username. Potentially, the config can be saved and your colleague can bring it back to his own lab, but you will need to change a few ports in that case. But I think it's interesting you do this lab, so you get really hands-on, especially in ISG. Not thinking about all the case sometimes of troubleshooting, but once you're going to start configuring, there will be troubles, or if there are none, we can at least see the debugs. So by next time, give me a list of users you want in each of those machines in Bangalore and RTP.
Thank you, Alan. So let me stop the recording.
Mm-hmm.